Nominal GDP is the total market value of all final goods and services produced in a country in a single year, calculated with current prices in that country. I will show you on the next slide what that means. Real GDP has a slightly different meaning. It actually can have two different meanings. The first one is that real GDP is nominal GDP adjusted for differences in purchasing power parity between countries. The second meaning is that real GDP is nominal GDP adjusted for inflation. And on the following slides, I will show you. First of all, what is real GDP when it's defined as nominal GDP adjusted for purchasing power parity? This type of real GDP is needed in order to compare the GDP between countries. Let me give you an example. Suppose Thailand has a nominal GDP per capita of $1,500, while the US have a nominal GDP per capita of $15,000. This does not necessarily mean that the average US person produces 10 times more than the average Thai person. It actually means to some extent that the price level in the US is much higher than Thailand. Nominal GDP per capita does not account for how expensive it is to live in a country. For example, living in the US is more expensive than in Thailand because the prices of many products, of many goods and services are higher in the US. If you buy a car in the United States and you buy the same car in Thailand, the price in the United States will be higher. Real GDP takes into account the difference in prices between countries. Let's go through another example. Let's assume that we're looking at the production of rice. And let's assume that we are comparing two countries, the United States and Thailand. Let's further assume that the United States produces 4 bowls of rice, whereas Thailand produces 3 bowls of rice. Of course, we could directly compare the number of bowls of rice. So the number of rice bowls produced in the US is bigger than in Thailand, 4 bigger than 3. But as we have seen before, we need to somehow find a monetary value. We want to measure the production of rice in terms of money. And we can do that by using current prices. So prices in the US in order to measure the value of rice in the US, and the price for rice in Thailand in order to measure the production of rice in Thailand. Let's assume that the price of 1 bowl of rice in the United States is $2. And let's assume that the price of 1 bowl of rice in Thailand is $0.5. This is a realistic assumption in terms of the relative difference in prices. Because if you buy food in the United States, the same food will be more expensive than in Thailand, simply because the price level is different. Now let's see how we can calculate the nominal GDP. For the United States, the nominal GDP, if we would only have the production of rice, would be $2 per bowl of rice times 4, because we have 4 bowls of rice produced in the United States. 4 times 2 is 8, so the nominal GDP would be $8. In Thailand, we would need to multiply the price of 1 bowl of rice in Thailand, that would be $0.5, times the number of rice bowls produced times 3. 3 times 0.5 is 1.5. So the nominal GDP in Thailand would be 1.5 US dollar. And according to the nominal GDP, there would be a very big difference in nominal GDP between the US and Thailand. Actually, the United States in this example only produces one more bowl of rice compared to Thailand. But the nominal GDP would be more than 4 times larger, which is simply because different prices were used, local prices were used when calculating the nominal GDP. And this is a problem because we cannot make a meaningful comparison between countries if we use nominal GDP. Because remember, we want to measure the level of development of a country. And here, in this example, we would overestimate the level of development in the United States and underestimate the level of development in Thailand. And how does that work? It works simply by using one consistent price for all countries. So for example, we use the price of one bowl of rice in the United States, both for the United States and for Thailand. So the price that we use is the same. And it will result in very different numbers for real GDP. The real GDP in the United States is the same as the nominal GDP because the price is the same as the one that we used before. It's still 4 times 2 equals 8. But in Thailand, the picture looks very different. In Thailand now, we use another price than before. We multiply that price, 2 US dollar, by 3 and we get to 6 US dollar, which is much higher than the nominal GDP. And now we can see that we have a meaningful comparison in the production between these two countries. 8 US dollar compared to 6 US dollars in Thailand. This is a meaningful comparison that we can make between these two countries. We know that there are 4 bowls of rice produced in the United States compared to 3 bowls of rice produced in Thailand. The value of that is 8 US dollar in the United States and 6 US dollar in Thailand. This is how real GDP, in terms of adjusting for purchasing power parity, works. Let's look at some statistics. Those are the 5 countries with the highest GDP, with the highest nominal GDP in the world in the year that is 2014. The first one is the United States, second China, number 3 Japan, 4 Germany, and 5 United Kingdom. When we use the real GDP adjusted for differences in prices instead, we get a different picture. Now China is number 1 and the United States is number 2. Why is that? That is because China has a lower price level than the United States. When we use nominal prices, remember we use the prices in each and every country. For the United States, we use the prices in the United States. Prices in the United States are relatively high. This tends to increase the nominal GDP.